So according to your website, Emily, you've got quite an impressive background working in charities and the third sector. What would you say, sort of based on your employment experience, drew you to the Labour Party?
I've got quite extensive experience in both the voluntary sector and public sector, quite a bit in both sectors. I think I was attracted to the Labour Party much before then. I basically come from a working class family. I have memories, for example, going back at an early age of why politics was important to me and my family. So I grew up losing sight as a child and had eye operation after operation in Liverpool's St Helier, in Liverpool's Alder Hey Hospital. And as a result of that experience, the NHS became very important to me. Although my sight ultimately was lost, I retained it for longer than would have been the case without the support of the NHS.
How would you describe Labour values, and why do you think that the values of the party and the party itself are still relevant in 2015?
It's about solidarity of people coming together in terms of social causes, for example around LGBT rights or disability rights. It's about very much making a difference to people's lives. It is about sharing responsibility and rights. So it is, for example, looking at those who are the wealthiest in society and sharing some of that wealth with those who are less off. So they are the kinds of values that attracted me to the Labour movement and which are strong to this day.
The most recent poll of polls, the BBC poll of polls today, places Labour 1 point behind the Conservative Party. If the record of...
The opinion poll I've seen from YouGov today has it the other way around.
I'm taking it from the poll of polls. If the record of the Conservative Liberal Democrat coalition is so bad, why do you think that Labour is 1 point behind, or certainly isn't ahead in the polls?
I think Labour have a very strong message. We have a better plan for this country. I think the opinion polls are consistently moving in our direction. There is clearly a strong debate between austerity and in terms of those who want to see a thorough recovery, and I think that is a debate that is unfolding, and I think Labour's message is a strong one.
This year marks 18 years since the landslide Labour victory in 1997. Labour were in power for 13 years, and many would argue that the financial crisis has overshadowed Labour's record. So how would you defend the record of the last Labour government?
The last Labour government was in office at a time when there was a global crisis. It wasn't just this country, and Gordon Brown was very much heralded internationally as a key player in stopping that international crisis becoming significantly worse. So measures such as quantitative easing has been seen as a significant contribution to ensuring that the economic decline wasn't so substantial. So Labour intervened. There are of course things that we need to learn from that time, and that was of course in terms of banking regulation wasn't strong enough, and I think it is very much part of Labour's approach to have stronger regulation. However, we were seeking to listen to business, particularly large corporation, about processes around regulation, and I think we probably leaned too far in the deregulation aspects of the economic debate, and that's something that we of course, are learning from, and that's why we are looking at, for example, differences between divisions between investment banking and retail banking, and stronger regulation overall. Where we came into office in 1997, for example, there was a waiting list crisis in the UK, and Labour took very significant steps to address that waiting list crisis. And there are several measures in that respect in terms of the efficiency and quality of care that we brought in. We brought in stronger regulation around care and health services, for example, and that's something that, yes, the Labour Party is proud of. But we.
And if I can just speak about Parliament briefly, it's incredibly representative in terms of gender, race, disability, you name it.
Yep.
The Labour Party is doing well, and it always has done better than
Yes.
the other parties. But what do you think can be done to make your party and Parliament more representative?
I think there are a variety of ways. Labour, for example, on gender, we have women-only shortlists, and that has helped increase significantly our number of women MPs. Still far short of what it should be, but we are making progress, unlike any other party. We have in 2009-2010 a speakers conference on the representation of women and disabled people and people from BME communities, and that was a cross-party initiative, and I was involved in much of that work at the time when I worked at the Equality and Human Rights Commission. And that, for example, one of the most constructive things that came out of it was the Access to Elected Fund for Disabled People. And that is a fund which assists disabled candidates like myself to use staff to act as support workers. And that fund, for example, is closing shortly after this general election. And that's a measure that I want and will continue to campaign for, the Access to Elected Fund to be reopened in some guise or other, because disabled people need their additional costs met. Parties in drawing up those lists of candidates need to take affirmative action at looking at a fairer balance between representation of men and women and inclusion of disabled people, BME communities, LGBT people. And I think parties do have a responsibility to do that. So,
About your strengths and weaknesses.
in terms of strengths, that I'm hardworking, I'm passionate about what I do, and particularly around equality issues, which has been at the core of what I've been campaigning for decades. So my passion, my hard work, I think are assets. In terms of my weaknesses, perhaps sometimes I can get a bit too focused in the zone, and I need to remember to listen, and that is important.
What would your friends say about you, Ben? How would they describe you, do you think?
The things they say about me is, in fact, some of my friends describe me as Miss Independent. I'm very, very independently minded, and that, I think, very much stems from my own education, where I went to a boarding school where you learn independence. This was a school for blind and partially sighted children, and you learn to be resilient. And I think resilience is one of my strengths, but often I can be very independent and don't take help very well, for example, or very easily. And I'm better at that as I've got older, and because I have a strong sense of self-responsibility. I have to do everything myself, and of course not everybody does everything for themselves, and I have to be quite mindful of So some of my friends can get frustrated with me sometimes when they just want to help out in some way, and sometimes I just need to take a step back. And so I think that's probably also one of my weaknesses. I think I'm better at is sort of delegating and stepping back and allowing things to happen.
Brilliant. And what would you say is your sort of big motivation? What is it that makes you sort of get out of bed in the morning? Other than
I love the role of working in politics because it brings huge variety of engaging with different kinds of people, but also a huge range of issues. I can be dealing with so many different issues in a day, and I find that intellectually challenging and rewarding, as well as the feedback I get from people. I find really positive, even in a way that often perhaps may not agree with the case I'm making. It's something that I find stimulating and engaging with people. So I enjoy that. And but the key thing for me is politics, and what I do is about making a difference. So, for example, as a disabled person, I know how tough it can be in terms of accessing information, and therefore, because of my skills and attributes, I can bring about change in a way that perhaps other people find living with blindness is much more challenging, because, for example, they've lost their sight in later life, where I was able to develop skills like Braille, etc., when I was younger. So the sense that I'm able to contribute, the sense that I'm able to make a difference to people's lives, I think is a motivator. Much of my life has been about change, both in terms of adjusting to disability, getting to grips with my own gender identity and sexual orientation, which I didn't manage for many years, and having a great sense of isolation. And because of that, and knowing how tough life can be, as I did at one time, when I was in a place that meant that I nearly took my own life, said to me that things can always be better. And that's why I've signed up for Labour's Better Plan. But it's about fairness, it's about equality, it's about helping people break their isolation. That's why I'm involved with a charity community network which seeks to break people's isolation. They're the kind of motivations that if I can make a difference to people's lives is important to me. That's why I'm in politics, and I don't want to sound sort of, glib about it, or I don't know, important about it. It's just what motivates me is making a difference, and I'm making a better difference, and that comes from much of my experience where I found it tough, and I know that people find it tough. And the other thing, of course, is my own children. They're 20. Well, my son is 21 tomorrow, and my daughter in a few weeks 19. And they've been a great source of inspiration in my life, and continue to be so. And so that's also why I do what I do.